Hello, welcome to Math for All, where we like to keep math creative, curious, and inclusive for everyone. I'm Molly Vokey.
And I'm Heidi Signani. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're really excited to be speaking with one of our friends. And we also have a number of really exciting things coming up. First, if you are interested, you can find our book, Math Activators, on didax.com. And we are happy to have a conversation with you about this. You can find out more information on our website or here on our YouTube channel about that resource and how it can help you in the classroom. We're also happy to come and do that in person. And additionally, we're going to put in the chat right now a link to the Making Math Moments Summit, which is coming up in November. This is a free weekend-long event that you can register for. You do need to register, so click on that link. And you will have access to, I think it's about 30 different sessions over the course of 3 days, and a lot of amazing guests and speakers, some of which have been on the show in the past and some who are coming on in the future. So we hope that you will check that out.
Yeah.
And here we are in all the spaces, if you would like to.
Yeah, all of our places where you can find us, and our website. And let's get to our guest.
Yeah.
We're very excited to talk to Brendan Scribner today. We probably met him about a year ago. Does that sound about right, Heidi?
Or two, yeah.
Yeah, just about a year ago. And so let me read his bio. Brendan Scribner's journey in education began in a prior century, where he embarked on his career as a middle school math teacher in Vermont. From the outset, Brendan's dedication to fostering mathematical curiosity and understanding shone through, setting the stage for a lifelong commitment to his craft. Transitioning to teaching fourth grade in Hanover, New Hampshire, Brendan spent 2 decades refining his pedagogy in the classroom. Throughout this time, he continually sought to improve his teaching methods, recognizing the importance of adapting to the evolving needs of his students. His pursuit of excellence led him to pursue further academic enrichment, culminating in a master's in the science of teaching mathematics from the prestigious Vermont Math Initiative. In his current role as a math consultant, Brendan's impact extends beyond individual classrooms as he supports entire school systems in integrating problem solving into their curriculum. Beyond his professional endeavors, Brendan finds inspiration in a variety of activities, from spending time with his family to exploring the scenic landscapes of Vermont on his bike or skis. His diverse interests reflect his zest for life and his appreciation for the beauty found in both nature and mathematics. So let's bring him in.
Hello,
Brendan Scribner. Hello.
It was a lovely bio. I don't know who wrote it, but it really touched my heart personally.
Yes, I am so eloquent.
Oh, that's awesome. So we're so happy to have you here. And we always love to start with this question. Just allows everyone to get to know you if they haven't had the chance to meet you in real life, like we have. But what is your math story?
So it's interesting. And I have this little quote from Goldie Muhammad just sitting here. And I want to start there, just thinking about identity. And that identity is composed of not only who we are, but who others say we are and whom we desire to be. And if I really thought about my math story and that journey, growing up in a rural dairy farm, being a first generation college student, the idea of thinking about math was not something I necessarily had to be led to in school. More, I was constrained in schools. I remember as a kindergartner, that first day of school, you're really excited, and your whole life, you're 4.5 years old or almost 5 years old, and your whole life, long period of time, you've been doing nothing but math activities in the barn, in the meadow, with bales of hay and wagons and just activity your whole life, how far you had to walk down the dirt road to enter into the pasture. And then the first day the school bus comes up and this big red sign says, stop. And it's like, stop what? And stop thinking, is what it ended up being for me. And so my journey of like K-12 was always, there was someone at the front of the room, right? Someone at the front of the room always telling me what to think. And if I could remember what they were saying or took enough notes, and regurgitated it, and then they would grade me on how close I got to exactly what they had offered me from the front of the room. I don't think I remember a math teacher actually being at my side until college. And that makes me think about the word assessment and that Latin term of to sit beside. And so it wasn't until college that I felt that on my math journey in a math class. And I knew there was one thing, like Tracy Zager wrote a book about becoming the math teacher you want to be. I forget the title exactly. But that type of idea is why I became an educator. I loved working with kids. I was coaching a lot of youth sports. And the second career opportunity to become an educator came up. A middle school principal actually was watching me coach middle school kids and said, if you get your teaching certificate, I'll hire you tomorrow. And that was quite a promise, because at that time in education, in a prior century, as you stated, there might be 200 applicants for a job. Right. And I certainly did get hired by that middle school principal without an interview. It was just a simple phone call, and I showed up on the first day of school and started teaching. There was no interview, no school board, and he helped me bypass it, and that sort of started my teaching journey. And I think I'm going to keep this story going. I continued to be. I victimized my students for a few years because I taught the way that I was taught. And it was a period of time before I started staring at the clock and always wondering, like, when am I losing the students? And I discovered it was somewhere between 5 and 7 minutes. And it led me
interesting. So much research about that time period, isn't there?
There is, and all those routines and everything. Yeah. And I would be teaching a lesson, what I thought was teaching, delivering, and somewhere between minute 5 and minute 7, the slope would hit. And so I was constantly looking for how could I be better and do better. And internally, inside that silo of the classroom, I didn't have, there was no PLC structure, mentoring happening, barely watching each other teach. We were just, right to the business of bell to bell teaching classes in our school. So the Vermont Math Initiative was my go-to. And I had known for like a decade that I wanted to pursue that master's degree and collaborate with others and build my community. And it was through that I really got introduced to, there's some serious shifts in math content knowledge, pedagogy, way of thinking about mathematics that I needed. And I had delayed it because I was raising my kids and family and coaching youth sports. And then when it all came together, I got to this place where I'm at, which is I taught for 25 years and hit the retirement button and went on a journey of, can I sustain just thinking about math? And it's sustainable. I actually had a middle school teacher in Essex, Vermont say, do you ever turn it off, Brendan? Do you ever stop thinking about it? And quickly said, no. I'm constantly thinking about from the moment you walk in a room to the moment you leave a room and the interaction with your peers. As a teacher, what is your community? To the students, what is their community? And how do they go together? So my math story brought me to today, which is as an independent Scribner LLC. I work with schools near and far. This summer, I went as far as Oregon and California and Arizona.
Wow.
And had some great interactions with school leaders, talking about systems change, supporting the work of Imagine Learning and illustrative mathematics, where schools are implementing or in year 2 or 3. And also just supporting some schools here in Vermont and New Hampshire, really working on teacher practice and the skill of those lesson plans and implementing. So that's my math story and where I'm at today, and excited to be with the two of you.
Ah,
We
that's a
are
good
as
place.
well. And that leads us really into our main question. So, and of course, we're going to answer this whole thing in the next like 20 minutes, everyone. So just
Yeah.
yeah, no.
Answer it like in a minute.
All of your problems will be solved. We will see
Yeah.
that tonight.
Oh, yeah, then the conversation will be over. No.
Yeah.
So when we think about practice and our teaching practices that like have high impact on both like how teachers facilitate and student learning, can you paint the picture kind of for us? Like, what do you mean by that high impact?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because when I know when I first thought about high impact, like, what do I get when you implement something that doesn't maybe cost anything? It doesn't
Mhm.
require me to have more manipulatives or more resources or a certain curriculum, but these are moves that we can make. And in a sense, we get something for free, like great teaching moves, and great problem solving tasks, and great um, divergent thinking tasks. We get these things for free, and we as teachers have to be able to notice those free things. Like, we get student discourse, student to student discourse, we get debate in our classrooms, we get kids solving things in multiple ways, and we elevate identity and agency of the kiddos in the room. And also, we as teachers get a lot of things for free as well. That joy, we feel supported by colleagues. We have a community. There's a lot of high impact moments in a teacher's 60-minute lesson, 45-minute lesson, or in some places 39 minutes or 25.
Yeah,
depending on
which is
schedule.
not enough. Just so everyone knows,
No.
not enough.
Yeah, and I think
Doesn't matter what program you're using, it's not enough.
right. And this idea of belief and trust is so important. And I know some folks love to bring in Ted Lasso and leadership and that believe poster. But that efficacy, that
Mhm.
belief in ourselves, in our practice, is a high impact move. And I know you've probably read the Rethinking Disability in Mathematics book by Rachel Lambert.
It's right.
Yep.
Heidi has every book. Heidi has every single book that there ever was written in her house.
So like I'm working my way through in a like I've a little bit of a stack situation happening.
Yeah, well, we could talk about our stacks, because I got my stack going. Today was a day in the office, and like, she talks about teacher trust and trust the thinking of their students.
Mhm.
And that there's that beautiful quote in there, and certainly that's a book that has to be read at least 3 times.
Yeah.
It is a 3 reads protocol.
Yeah.
And everybody can see Rachel October 24,
Yep,
25 at Mini Conference, Nashua, New Hampshire. Hit that registration button.
You can also see us, where all of us will be there speaking. So
and so that idea of high impact is the belief. And I think there are moments in our classroom where we as teachers can sustain that and support that. Like, as we approach students and we ask an assessing question, or we ask an advancing question, we're inserting a belief. And there are these abilities that we have as teachers to make student thinking happen. So that's something I'm deeply thinking about with high impact.
I feel, if I might just chime in on that, I feel like that is a humongous barrier for teachers, because as you kind of described in your story, most teachers teach the way they were taught, not only to teach, but the way that they were personally taught as students. And so there wasn't a lot of belief in students being able to be independent thinkers and bringers of their own knowledge. So I feel that that is something that's a really big barrier for teachers, because it's scary to let go of the control and give it to students, not knowing what they will say and not knowing where the lesson will go and not knowing how they are going to respond because they don't know what people are going to say.
Yeah. And so like, I know you all do as well, support schools like I do with illustrative mathematics, and a problem-based approach. And I think you nailed it on the head. The idea that the teachers are making a shift in the students are the content creators. They are creating the math story. And they are the authors of a math story in our math class. And I, as a facilitator, or some people call us coaches, some people call us ambassadors. Some even say guide by the side, but the side should be more in the middle. That we are sort of the editors of that, as we're out there experiencing what students are thinking, and we're helping guide them, but then we're bringing it together. And those high impact practices, of course, are deeply rooted in Peg Smith and Mary Kay Stein and their work with the 5 practices for promoting productive mathematical discourse. And of course, Bookstack, the new book about coaching, the 5 practices.
Shockingly, I don't have that one yet.
You don't have that one? Got to hit the button.
I have all the other ones along that line.
Somewhere around Roman numeral page 17, I might find my name.
Corwin, feel free to just ship me the book. I mean,
please, Aaron, no, please just send us all. But this great work that Peg and Mary Kay and Bilge are doing at the University of Pittsburgh is long term. And one educator in Florida said to me one time, Brendan, everybody knows about the 5 practices. It's foundational. And no matter where I go, I tote my 5 practices book and I'll pull it out and people go, I have no idea what you're talking about. What are you talking about? And I feel like that's a high impact practice. And one of the ways that I love thinking about it is that, we have to have these rich tasks. We have to have problems worth solving, which means we might not have a solution. And so many of our packaged curriculum materials might have answers in the back, or there'll be very convergent tasks. And if we can incorporate enough of those divergent tasks where it does invite multiple pathways of thinking for students, we've got this rich task. And then we can do many things as a teacher actions to help facilitate that conversation. And I think tie it together with 2014's Catalyzing Change and those 8 effective math teaching practices. I like to take the 5 practices and put them next to those 8 effective teaching practices. And then where's the bridge? And what supports what? Where's the discourse in those 5 practices? So that's my go-to as far as when I think about whatever we're doing in the classroom. Are we delivering or creating an opportunity with a rich task? Are we creating an environment where the thinking can happen? So
can we go back just a little bit? You had mentioned, and I like this idea of like the editor and the person who's pulling from the different, because I mean, we all do work in this sphere of where there are programs that have either a synthesis, or all of us have worked in BTC land too, building thinking classrooms, where there is a idea of consolidation. And so I find that those 2 things are very connected, if not synonymous, in kind of our ways of thinking about it. So if we as teachers are looking at this from an kind of editor's position, I find that supporting teachers in doing synthesis or in doing consolidation is the most difficult part of any of the work that I have done. And I know Molly and I have had lots of conversations around this, that's the most difficult piece. And I think some of it is teachers don't trust themselves to know what to look for. And sometimes there is a like insecurity about not knowing what to look for. So can you talk a little bit about that and maybe the importance of that portion of the lesson, and why that's so important?
Yeah, I am in samey world here. Samey world with synthesis, consolidating. And part of it can be that element, like Peg and Mary Kay and Bilge in this recent book, they talk about the 19 challenges teachers face, and they align them with the 5 practices. And the 19th is running out of time.
Yes.
And
I
so
don't know why that's not the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. That's all you ever hear in schools.
exactly. And if people can somehow just put it at the end, like
Yeah.
if running out of time is really going to be your barrier, then we've got a plan. And I know I've heard Peter Liljedahl talk about a third of the lesson time is in synthesis and consolidation. And it's so important that it might be about a third of the time. And the way to get there, though, that I think I experience when working with teachers and being in classrooms is that so many teachers haven't anticipated. They haven't actually solved the task or tried the task themselves. And often we can't just solve a task and say that we have a solution and this is what I'm going to drive my students to. I have to have like multiple pathways, like at least 2 that I anticipate that my students might solve. And then I should have a misconception or a possible misunderstanding. And I like to drop the prefix and call those conceptions or right, not takes, not mistakes. And
right. Because they do think they're correct. Like this is where their learning is right now. And so we need to move them from where they are right now to where we need them to be. But that like they've come to that conclusion for a reason. What's the reason behind coming to that conclusion?
Yeah. And there's like when we anticipate, when you sit down and you actually look at a series of lessons in any curriculum or any self-designed curriculum, and you look at like 3 or 4 of them in a row, and there's this flow or story. It's really important that I have looked at the possible student outcomes because it reduces my load, my cognitive load when I'm teaching. Like some people like to say teachers make 1,000 decisions a day. Well, I don't want to make a decision in a classroom when I'm walking around and I'm looking at your work, whether or not I'm going to leverage that to meet the learning goal. I want to have some ideas. How close is it to something I anticipated? Could I ask that student an assessing question to help me understand where they started or where they're going? Could I ask that student that advancing question that takes what they have, the work they have, and keeps them going forward? And if we haven't done the work ourselves, it's really challenging. I had a teacher in upstate New York who pulled out their student workbook. It was a 3rd grade teacher, pulls out the student workbook. It's August, school starts in a week. This is the first day of in-service. And she's like, Brendan, look at this. I completed every 3rd grade task of this curriculum. And she had all her workbooks and she was going through them and showing me all of her anticipated work. And I have to guess that she had a really good, successful year. Possibly.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the work that I do is lesson planning and doing the very work that you're talking about. Well, let's look at this lesson and this problem and what are the possible things that kids could say or do, or models that they could use. And, but even the planning time that I am typically allowed to have with teachers is often not enough to be able to go through everything so that I have like a really cohesive lesson. So even with, a partner to be able to do this work with, it's work. It's you really have to invest in it to be able to get to that consolidation. Because I do find that, we get to the end of, I'm saying the end of the lesson, meaning like not to the consolidation yet, right? And then I'm like, okay, time to go. So I will model consolidation tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And I recently had a session with some fabulous teachers in Long Island. It's in, not on, in Long Island. And we actually went through a task, and we did a full lesson, and then we went through consolidation and pulled back, talked about the consolidation moves we could make. Then we did another task, but in the second task, they had to choose how we were going to consolidate, and gave them sort of a menu of options, whether they used like a teacher scribe move, where the teacher's scribing in the consolidation, or do we do just a whole group discussion about it, or a gallery walk? And we sort of invited them in that way. And I think in about 90 to 100 minutes, they got to a point where, okay, I get this consolidation thing. Now, how do I get to it?
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Like the flow of a lesson, because sometimes teachers, we get so stuck in the moment that time slips away from minute 5 to minute 40. And we maybe we're looking for mastery of a standard, mastery of all students. And then we have some behaviors flaming up over there in the back or in the front.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I'm sure we have all said this, that we learn the most from the teachers that we work with in different scenarios. And it was probably 10 years ago now, or close to that. I was in a classroom with a fairly new teacher, maybe year 2, but I think partway through year 1. And she was teaching, I think, first or second grade. And we had been talking about like the flow of the lesson and things like that, but I was in there visiting, and she had her phone in her back pocket, and the alarm went off 10 to 15 minutes before the end of class in her pocket. And it was like, oh, I am an idiot. Like that's the thing, because, like the timer up in front of the room, that's almost like, feels like a countdown clock. And I'm like, it makes me sometimes it can make everybody nervous, but I get that it's there, but sometimes I need 2 of those happening. But this was like, she's like, no, every time I start the lesson, I just put it in my pocket, and I have an alarm that goes off. And then there was not the rush of like, what did you learn? Tell me quickly. And like, or like all of those things. And there was like a conversation, and then there was still time to like pack up and all of those things. And that has been my number one thing to teachers is like, okay, yes, you may have a clock that you have for students to go off and work together. But if you don't have a clock for you, that you don't have to reset every time an activity is done, or you like, that's the only way you're ever going to make sure you have the time for that.
Yeah.
Because we get so excited by whatever is happening with the thinking. And the thinking could be just in the little group we're looking at, and everyone else is done. And they're like, so like there's this timing aspect of it. We will not make the time if we don't set the timer for ourselves.
And I've also lingered there, because so many teachers were talking about we can't look at the clock, or you go into classrooms that maybe don't even have a clock on the wall. But yeah, having that timer on the phone that vibrates, or a really light sound, and you set it like you can't set, if I'm trying to reach an end of an activity in 15 minutes, don't set it for 15, set it for like 10 or 9. Read the room. And the reading of the room is I've monitored for those first 9 minutes. I'm looking for some clues about what I anticipated, or some serious differences. I've already started to select. And so that monitor and select has to happen.
That's a skill.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a skill in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
Being able to do that selection, monitor the things. And sometimes it's a feeling, right? Like I'll be in a classroom with a teacher, and they'll say, okay, do you think we should pull them together? And sometimes it's like so obvious when you need to pull kids together, even if you're not at consolidation part, like everyone just had the same problem, so let's come back together. But all of those things are part of the learning process on the teacher's part. And so I don't know. can you maybe give us some more examples of what you consider to be high impact moves? Obviously, we've talked a lot about consolidation, but what would you say are the most high impact moves that you like?
So as a teacher, I'm always thinking about anticipating. So I think anticipating what my students are going to do. And I always I want to just highlight that we can be very biased. We can bring our own biased tones. And sometimes just anticipating the mathematics. Sometimes we'll say, solve it the way your students would. And you might get someone who is going to label, my low student, if I label them low, I'll probably teach them low, as Ken Williams might say in October in Nashua, New Hampshire, at the front of the room. And you got to be there to listen to that.
Yeah.
It's really good. So I think anticipating is a very important part of just being familiar with your content. And when you're familiar with your content, you have this a little more confidence in material and the connection between the mathematical thinking and the process of math that's happening and the learning goal. Like, do I really understand the learning goal? So I think that's a high impact move. And I think questioning is probably the next layer, because I've anticipated, and I have to have the ability when I approach student work and a student who's thinking, or what I see in their actions with some manipulatives, I have to be able to either ask that assessing question, and approach them with curiosity and trust. I'm curious, tell me more about where you started. What will be your next move? But therein lies the timer again, high impact. I don't want to sit there for 2 minutes. I'm trying to get a specific piece of information to add to my monitoring chart, and then I got to move. Unless I'm in a New Hampshire classroom with 6 students, I don't have to move very far. And those are out there.
They are, but they're rare in our area.
Yeah.
Like a wonderful New Jersey classroom with 28, and it's half the size as the New Hampshire classroom.
Yeah.
You don't have to move very far there either. But I think that, being purposeful with your questions and reducing your load in the lesson by having some possible questions or sentence frames of questions. Everybody loves the tell me more. I'm curious about is the other frame, and it's all about their identity, because I can ask a question minute 7, minute 10 of an activity, like, can you solve it in another way? And that student already solved it, already did the thinking, and they're like, seriously, Mr. Scribner, you're going to make me solve it again? And so I have to be careful about who I'm asking questions of and when. And I think the other high impact part is just, I think the first time it really resonated with me and sunk into my brain was when Peter Liljedahl said it, that I'm moving to consolidation or synthesis when about half. And I was like, wait a minute, about half of what? And this idea that, you're in there, you're monitoring, about half the class is in a certain spot, not necessarily done, but they all have an area model. Half the class has an area model. All right, I'm selecting that one. That's my high impact move. I'm going to start with where most students are in my consolidation. And I love talking about synthesis and consolidation, of course, but you all have probably been in a place where people did this to you. I'm going to invite you, Heidi, to be second. And you look at the teacher and you're like, no, I'm a third idea. I need to be third because I can wrap this whole thing up. And so even when we select and sequence, we got to know our students and that trust and relationship. So that's the other, I think, anticipate, being an effective questioner, and the ability to know your time and read the room and select those couple of pieces to tell the story. And I know there's a lot of conversation about, selecting 3 pieces. I found great success with teachers selecting 2 pieces and then having a bridge. what's the connection between those two? And then
Mhm.
finishing with what would happen if, and then that
Mhm.
explicitness can come in. Like, we didn't see the tape diagram today. What would happen if we used a tape diagram?
Right.
And then done and dusted. Off we go. Next thing. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like I do like I do consolidation well, but you've just broken it down to a science. So now I need to practice more.
It would be a lot of fun to practice together.
Yes. Yeah.
I just thought I'd put up Nicole saying curiosity and trust are easy and powerful things to keep in mind when talking with students. So,
and if you ever have the opportunity to be in Jefferson County, Kentucky, and go to Nicole Medina's classroom, please go. Because Nicole's doing great things there. And of course, we all know Nicole from Building Thinking Classrooms, attending the conferences, and she and Tammy McMurrow and their genius sort of help author that K-2 Facebook group that teaches us all things every day.
Yeah. So. No, they're amazing. And like, would like a personal invite.
You like a personal invite?
Well, she's right here, so you might have one.
No, I want to visit. I'll have to maybe try that when I'm out seeing my brother and sister-in-law sometime. But and it's this idea of building the bridge and having the opportunity, because I think sometimes, and maybe we've all heard this, when we're supporting teachers who are transitioning to a problem-based curriculum or a building thinking classrooms, or like, and so I think we get it from both students and teachers, right? I'm doing a parent night where I'm addressing some of those things. And these are all the questions I've gotten from parents already. You know, like, my kid says that they only ask questions. They only answer their question with a question. My kid says that. I'm like, okay, well,
tell me more.
They're middle schools. So like, let's, but anyway, I digress. But my thinking around this is this idea of the consolidation and the synthesis is really when that happens. And we're flipping, the I do, we do, you do. We're flipping those things in that space. So if you don't set that time aside and have it be sacred, I can't think of another word at the moment, but like, then you are missing those moments to make the connections. And that is our job, right? The picture I have in my mind when we do this is from like the World War II movies with all of the phone things where you have like the women with the head things and they were like doing this. Like, you are the connection builder of those things. And that's when we do that time.
Yep.
And I would wonder. So I think it was, I don't remember if it was Marian or Brooke Powers who said, like, if you're not getting to consolidation, it could be that you're talking too much during the activities and not letting the kids actually wrestle with things. And I wonder about that, like in a building classroom mindset, or in any other problem-based, if we're getting bogged down, or if we feel like we're talking too much, we're not allowing the kids to make those connections. And so when we get to the end, you're just repeating yourself.
Yeah. That's a good way that you can monitor it, though, right? Like, to check in on yourself.
Yep. And I know John Hattie and his effect sizes, which it would be easy to line up some of those effect sizes and really think critically about, are those high impact moves? But that's one way to look at this. And I've always thought about student discourse being the thing to really lean into. And he has a quote, if you're talking all the time, how can you hear the impact of your teaching? So I think about that idea of, exactly, we need to listen. And then I want to give credit to Allison Hintz, because some of her work is in active listening. Like, what does it really mean as a teacher to listen? And then is it Max Ray Reich with his wonderful, he has a Ignite talk from like 2011 about 2 being greater than 4.
Yes. So good.
2 student thinking,
good.
Listening 4. So like,
and
I've
talked a lot about that with teachers, using that specific Max Ray video. And it's so true. And it speaks very well to what seems to be for you, your primary teacher move is anticipating, or at least you've talked a lot about that today. And if you don't anticipate, then you're not listening for the right things.
Yep.
Or you don't know what you're listening for, which is his point. And I've talked about this with teachers, and we've practiced it, and they resounding, yes, that's so true. It is so true.
Yeah. And really, like, listening to student thinking is really we'll go again. Let's drop another book title, Street Data. Like, that's what we need to be looking at as teachers. That'll really shift the satellite data later on that someone might care about. That idea of what the students are saying, what they're doing with actions. And I have to pull back. I have to pull back for a certain amount of time and make sense of it. And eliciting that evidence. The students are the authors of the mathematical content in the room, and I just need to help publish it every 45 minutes. And that is scary. You talked about being scary and being vulnerable because you don't know what they're going to do. But you do, because if you're putting in these fence post stakes along the way that are called questions. Your questions assess where they are, and you can advance with other questions, and a way to help keep them going in a direction.
This, obviously, we could talk about this for days.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's back there. Yes.
So I also have Pam's book, Pam and Kendall Brown.
Yeah.
Sitting here choosing to see. And if I wanted to talk about high impact, I'm going to talk about the ICU care framework. And I know they wanted to, they kind of packaged that sort of mnemonic in there. But this idea of releasing control and expecting more kind of leapt at me. Like, I have to release my constrainings of student thinking to the students. I have to let them grapple. And at the same sense, though, I'm expecting more of them. And they're going to give me more because I've taken away the constraints of telling them what to think.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've had conversations with them before, and love just the work that they're doing around shifting the lens, I think, a little bit that a lot of teachers have, a lot of us have, just kind of in general, and kind of investigating our own stance on student belief and efficacy. So I think that's, I always liken it to like the psych kind of, it's totally aging myself. I'll be 50 next week, so I'm totally going to do that. When in school, they'd go to shake your hand, then they pull it back. I was like, that's the psych of like what we do when we start the year with non-curricular tasks, or we start the year with, the week of inspirational math tasks, or we start the year with all of these things that we talk about community, and then a week or two in, we're like, and open your book to page blah, 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 blah. Yeah. We've just ripped out all of the things that we've built because now we're shifting our focus, and what we've told kids we care about is not actually what we're caring about once we get to the real things. So anyway.
It's pretty fabulous. I think about that a lot, Heidi. I think about sometimes students will have ideas that are outside of any learning goal or lesson plan. And always trying to create a space in the room for like a thinking board where they can drop that question because it might lead to these aha moments. And I think that is the I in ICU care, include others as experts, and students are experts in certain things. And they're in your room. And if you have 25 students, I hope they're in 25 different places in their brain with 25 different ideas. And I hope you celebrate that. Like, I'd rather look at a garden with 25 different flowers than those single dandelions sitting there, a million of them in place.
Right.
So
Hmm. Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, Brendan, how about you tell our listeners how they can learn more about you
Sure. I think
and the work you're doing?
I'm often posting things on what used to be Twitter at bscrib. I think I posted a few things today. Love to interact with other math people in that forum. I like that forum in the sense that not because of who might own it, but that it has lingering reminiscence of a
Mhm.
mather community. And so that would be one place to connect with me. Also, my LinkedIn account, which is Brendan Scribner Mather. And I want to give credit where credit is due. I simply adore the work of Deborah Pert
Yes.
and my mathematical mind. And when I first heard her say the word mather, I was hooked. Like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we all made sense of the world using mathematics and the world around us too, not just like, it doesn't have to be the other side of a continent. It can be just our neighborhood and our school, and be socially conscious about it. So that'd be another place. And thank you, Deborah Pert, for that inspiration. Through LinkedIn, certainly could use an email. It's just simply my name, brendan.scribner@gmail.com. But happy to talk more, converse, connect you with other people like these two great mathers here. Let's all get together and build our community. I don't know, Heidi, if you want to say anything about the importance of math community and recent events.
Yeah.
That's why we need this community.
Yes. So
Hmm.
this, let me just say this.
Hmm.
Times can be difficult and times can be challenging. And there are times where multiple things can be true at the same time. And if we start with Deborah's work in that we can be readers, writers, and mathers. And this is the community that we build. But when we as a community allow hatred or untruth to be part of the community that we're in, it not only opens us up to very scary circumstances for people within our community, but it also can really cause damage to the community itself. So unless we're willing to have difficult conversations about things, throwing our weight around in social spaces does not mean that we've built a social community where everyone can be heard and everyone's stories are appreciated. And if you're like, I have no idea what she's talking about, fantastic. But we welcome you into the community and hope that we have as our goal the safety of all, the safety of the students that are in front of us every day, the safety of our colleagues who we work alongside, and the safety of colleagues who maybe are in a different district, a different state, or a different country. Because all of us have difficult things that we're facing.
I don't know how you just so eloquently piece this together. We did not just, the Math for All audience should know that this was not rehearsed.
Oh, no,
it's not.
Straight from the heart. And that, we have to, we've got to be a little vulnerable ourselves, but we also have to put up our fences and say, not here, not in my yard. We're not going to stand for the treatment of others in these negative ways. And powerful mather face that in their life, and we all adore that mather.
Yes, we do.
And just we need to embrace each other. And as Laura in Florida will tell you, just give each other some hugs.
She does say that a lot.
But like this show is called, it's Math for All. It's really for all. We are not in an exclusionary space here, and really appreciate the work that the two of you have done to do that. And if folks want proof of it, we started with Number Hive last week. And when you look at the list of people coming on this year, you have Todos representation. You got Texas represented.
No, we are very, I know it seems like, and this is how it worked out. Some people are like, well, you just had 2 white guys back to back. Yes, we did. But we also know
sepia tone.
Yes, we also know Brennan in person, and we have talked with Chris before, and that they are representative of and interested in building community. But we don't hide the fact that we do balance the gender and ethnicity of guests that we have on every year, which sometimes means that people get bumped to another year. And which is one of the reasons Brendan has been, this is season 4, and here he is.
I love and appreciate and honor exactly that. Voices for all. And it's something that has to be explicit, intentional, and you can't just pretend it doesn't exist. And building this math community means honoring all. And I appreciate that statement. And I would have been on season 12 if you wanted.
You'll be back.
Maybe you'll be back. Maybe you'll be back.
I'll take it. There's a lot of really cool people out there.
Yes.
Well, Brenda, thanks so much for being with us here. Really enjoyed this conversation.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. And I look forward to future Math for All shows with all the talent that's coming. So thanks for elevating the voices.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I think I cut him off. I didn't mean to. Well, Heidi, I think you've met your match in terms of books. He might be a bigger book collector than you. I'm not sure.
I didn't realize, even though we've met in real life. I know. You'll have. I know there's some others out there, but it's definitely like they're all right there.
I know, and he's very good at quoting too. So, which I'm terrible at.
Referencing, I love the reference. It's
great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
A little bit of time. No, go ahead.
Oh. All right, so next time we meet will be October 17th with Elzora Watkins. And take a look at our book. You can find it at Didex. And until we see you on October 17th,
we hope that you keep math creative, curious, and inclusive for everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.